Welcome to another Dragonlance Professionals episode. My name is Adam, and today I'm being joined by Claudio Pozas, an illustrator who's working on the new Dragonlance series of Shadow of the Dragon Queen and Warriors of Krynn that's coming out later this year. Before we begin, I would like to take a moment and thank the members of this channel, and always invite, if you're not already a member, to consider becoming a member. There's links in the description below to explore that. Claudio, thank you so much for joining me. How are you doing today?
I'm great, Adam. Thank you for having me.
It's such a pleasure. Now, we were talking, just a little behind the curtain here, before the show started, and we actually have a lot in common because I am an art director in advertising, and that's something that you were before, right? So, let's start early on with your training, and before we do that really quick, for anyone joining us live, if you have any questions or comments, go ahead and put them in the chat. And as the conversation continues, if I can get over there and ask the questions, then I definitely will. Thank you so much for joining, Chris, D20. Thanks for joining live. I appreciate you. All right, so let's talk about how you first got into this industry, because I had made the assumption that you were always just an illustrator, but that's not true, is it?
No, actually, my first published credit was as a writer in an article for Dragon Magazine, still in second edition Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah. Now, this one was for fourth edition, is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
During the whole third edition, I was illustrating and writing mostly for third-party publishers.
Mm-hmm.
But in fourth edition, I began, when Dragon and Dungeon magazines became online publications, I started pitching articles because they were it was the replies were faster from Wizards of the Coast back in the days of TSR, and even after Wizards bought TSR, you had to send in a self-addressed stamped envelope to your pitches and get everything through the mail. And living in Brazil, that could take a few months to know if your article would be desirable or not. So in fourth edition, I started writing articles for Dragon Magazine, and during a period in 2011, 2012, Wizards of the Coast sometimes would put together lists of articles they would like to run and send the list. They kind of reverse the pitch. They sent the list to their freelancer pool, and the freelancers could choose like 6 or 7 articles they would prefer they would like to write in order of preference, and they would try to accommodate everyone's top 2 or 3 choices. Wow. And when the time came, when the list came with the Lord Soth article, I jumped at the chance because Dragonlance was actually the first fantasy series I read as a kid.
Yeah.
Before Lord of the Rings, before Conan, before Lankmar, I read the Dragonlance Chronicle. So awesome. They have a special place in my heart.
Yeah. Well, starting out as a freelance writer, you went to school for advertising, right?
Yes, I pretty much as a default, because I had no idea what to do in college. I thought that I would that my work in advertising would finance my dream of being a comic book artist. But advertising does not pay that well in Brazil.
Yeah.
So after a while, I majored in advertising. I worked as an art director and a copywriter. And after a while, when third edition D&D was starting to come out, I was putting together an online gallery of my drawing, inspired by the concept arts that Wizards was posting, that Todd Lockwood and Sam Wood did for third edition, which were amazing.
Yeah.
So I started seeing my drawings online, and a third-party publisher from Canada, Fire Dragon Productions, contacted me and asked me if I was interested in doing art for them, little 1-inch counters that they were including in their adventures.
Yeah.
And I obviously said yes. And in time, I was getting more money from, which wasn't a lot, but it was more money from counters than I was, doing advertising,
Wow.
which had a grueling hours. Like I had one day off every 2 weeks or something like that.
Wow.
So I eventually switched from advertising to illustration full time in 2002. And in 2002, I went to my first Gen Con. Was still in Milwaukee,
Right.
and at that Gen Con, we were releasing the Counter Collection, which was Counter Collection actually 1 and 2, which was the first product that was just my art, because it was just like 100 counters, 200 counters, with I drew each one of them. So over time for Fire Dragon, I did maybe 3,700 counters.
Whoa.
For third and fourth for fourth edition, I illustrate every single monster in Monster Manual 1, Monster Manual 2, and Monster Manual 3.
Wow.
I say every single monster was the Goblin Ambusher and the Goblin Boss had different artwork. It's not just one Goblin with a different name. It was a different artwork for each variant of a creature.
Whoa.
So that alone was hundreds of illustrations, and they were really small. I drew them at 3 by 3 inches, and they were printed at 1 by 1.
Wow.
So yeah.
Do you have a most favorite of that collection?
Oh, damn. I love doing the dragons because they were. I did the Wyrmlings and all that, all the way up to the colossal great worms.
Yeah.
And I also did Orcus, which was cool.
Very cool.
And we did a counter. We did the counter collections were large, were like 8 by 11 binders, but we did like half-sized counter packs, and one of them was Cthulhu themed.
Oh, cool.
So I did a counter of Great Cthulhu, and that was fun too.
Yeah.
And I really liked also doing. Back then they were new, so I did Dragonborn and Tieflings. When we did the 4th edition Battle Box, which was a product made up of stuff to help the game run better, the 4th edition Battle Box had counters for every race and class combo, male and female. Back then, we didn't think of doing something that was more gender neutral, although some of them, especially like Dragonborn and even some of the other non-reptilian races, could work as gender fluid.
Right.
But I did male and female of each race and class combo in the player's hand. So some of those were pretty nice to do, pretty cool.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, who were some of your influences when you said you wanted to get into comics as a sort of a younger man dream? Who were your influences?
Well, when I was really young, I obviously started with Disney stuff. I learned to draw like Donald Duck and Mickey Mouse, the core characters.
Yep.
When I was like 7, I was already drawing them pretty correctly. But when I was 7 years old, there was a school trip during the holidays to the United States, to Disney World. And during that trip, I ran across at a mall at the hotel. I ran across these weird muscle-bound action figures, and it was obviously He-Man.
Yeah.
And they came with mini comics
Yep.
that were illustrated by Argentinian artist Alfredo Alcala, and that was my first push towards a more realistic artwork.
Wow.
And then I graduated to superhero comics, and my first art god in superhero comics was George Perez, and and then I was influenced a lot by George Perez, Mike Wieringo, and uh, and then I started reading Dragonlance. Right,
Yeah.
I was already playing Dungeons and Dragons I started in '87 with first edition,
Wow.
and the covers were amazing. I had the covers, not me, but my DM had the covers with the Jeff Easley covers for the player's handbook and
So good.
yes,
God,
and I saw the Keith Parkinson cover for the Temple of Elemental Evil, and that was all amazing. Then I went to a bookstore in Rio that was famously they had a lot of kid stuff, imported and Brazilian kid books, and they had these small Portuguese editions of the Dragonlance Chronicle.
Mm.
And I bought those, and they were the first fantasy books I read, and the covers were by Larry Elmo.
Yep.
From that, I bought the Art of Dragonlance book.
Mm-hmm.
I still have it here, but I can't bring it out because it's falling apart.
Yeah, it's fine.
After reading it so much. And then, yes, once I started in the fantasy art side of my journey,
Mm-hmm.
it was Larry Elmore, Clyde Caldwell, Keith Parkinson, Jeff Easley, Fred Fields, and as we progressed, Todd Lockwood, and in more recent times, people like Donato Giancola or Dan Dos Santos are like big inspiration.
That's great. How does it feel to have your work in this legacy gaming system, Dungeons and Dragons? It's been around from the beginning of role playing games, and you're part of
It's
that.
real. It's surreal. Getting the. I was already. I had my name on the cover of a couple of fourth edition books that I helped write, but to have my artwork in the Dungeons and Dragons Player's Handbook, it was something that I never imagined as I was younger. Obviously, once I started being a professional illustrator,
Mm-hmm.
it was certainly a goal to be, in Dungeons and Dragons. But to be in the actual player's handbook, and the Dungeon Master Guide,
Yeah.
It's still surreal. I have to take a break and really acknowledge that I've been published in the core books.
It's pretty amazing. I mean, Dungeons and Dragons has, for the most part, always had some really genuinely amazing artwork. And whether an individual, likes a particular piece or not, you can't really argue about the overall quality when it's, all put together in final published form. Do you have any sort of favorite pieces that you've released, in Player's Handbook, Dungeon Master's Guide, or some of the upcoming stuff that you've worked on?
Oh, that's kind of like choosing your favorite
Right.
child.
Yeah.
That's why I only had one, so I don't have to choose.
Mm-hmm.
I really liked doing the insect plague illustration in the Player's Handbook.
Oh, nice.
Even though it got every illustration we did for fifth edition was done as a full page.
Mm-hmm.
So WotC could choose how to arrange them as the book was being assembled.
Right.
So my insect plague was just full page with a nice Fibonacci spiral of insects coming towards the viewer,
Very
and then
cool.
when they published, it was cut into like a third. So
You're like,
it's
no.
still, but I like the image, the original image.
Yeah.
And of course, Great Wheel, man. It came out in Sepia in the player's handbook,
Mm-hmm.
in the appendix. But I did the Great Wheel as a full color illustration to mimic a scroll, as if it were done by one of the sages in Sigil.
Oh, very cool.
Let me.
Yeah. It's reversed. Yeah. Oh, that's
Yes.
great.
Here we go. So I did it with like that verbose text that Planescape was known for.
Yeah.
And that's another one that I was pretty proud of, because the Great Wheel of the Plains was something that it has followed me since first edition.
Yeah.
I really like the whole concept of the outer planes and how they came together, and I've tried to assemble the Great Wheel, the inner planes and the outer planes in a single image as best as I could.
Wow. Seems like it would be a daunting task. Difficult. Well, let's turn to the chat room here really quick. Chris is saying that you did the best version of the Staff of Magus that he's ever seen. We are going to be showing some more of his artwork here in just a second, so hold tight for that. And then he follows up, is there any chance of you doing any more Dragonlance illustrations? Now, I don't know how much you're able to talk about and what you aren't able to talk about, but is there any like new or fresh Dragonlance illustrations in the horizon for you?
The only Dragonlance stuff I did was for Warriors of Kryn. It was done in February or April, if I remember correctly.
Right.
And only 2 of the images were shown so far, because they are on the back cover of the Warriors of Kryn box, which was nice to have. But yeah, I still have other pieces from Warriors of Kryn that I can't talk about, but they were already. I did those with the ones that were that one and the Undead Warrior.
Yeah.
Uh,
So we'll get through some of them here in just a second, but I just wanted to show those as we were talking about them.
Yeah. For that one, it's funny because since, I don't know, last year maybe, I've been wanting to paint like fan art of Lord Soth.
Yeah.
But because I love Lord Soth's charge that Keith Sparks painted.
Yeah.
It's one of my favorite D&D images of all time. But I wanted to show Lord Soth like he really came out of the fire that engulfed him in Dargard Keep.
Right.
And if you look at like the burnt husk of a car or something like that, you see that the metal is not like shiny black. It's corroded. It's pitted here and there. It's worn down, and I wanted to do like that version of Lord Soth, but I never got the time to do it. And then when the call came in to do these images for Warriors of Kryn, the art director assigned me an undead knight carrying the banner of Lord Soth.
Wow.
Of the black coat. And I was, okay then, I guess I will. I guess.
Yes, please.
I'll use the reference I assembled for my Lord Soth fan art and get paid for it.
That's great.
If you notice the black rose on the breastplate, is still visible because it was originally made of the steel of the armor, but the vines around it would be like engraved and embedded filigree, like either gold or silver,
Mhm.
and the fire would have melted them,
Oh, that's great.
leaving the grooves in the shape of the vines and the thorns, and with the metal, the shiny metal melted, you get the black vine surrounding the rose. That's a way that I found to give the rose an extra pop, but still have the rest of the armor be, you know, uh, embellished
Yeah.
in a way.
It's a great concepting. I love it when there's thought that goes into it and it's not just, well, I want to do some pretty designs. You really thought about these. I love that.
Yeah, like I said, I was trying to gear up for Lord Soth image,
Yeah.
so it was, what could I do for this or for that? Lord Soth armor, uh, the gold would melt and it would what they would leave behind.
Hmm.
What would be the after effect of being in a blazing inferno? So yeah, I was already thinking about it. So it was, and I didn't even choose. When the art director gave me a list with just the names
Hmm.
of the characters, so I could pick them,
So it was just random.
and yeah, I had no idea. This one was not one of the ones I picked.
Ah.
She assigned me this character, which I can't say if it's a male, female, or whatever. It's a corpse.
Hmm.
So you have to wait for the game to come out. But it just fit with everything I wanted to depict about Large Soft.
Hmm.
So it was a bit of serendipity, you know.
Is there any like professional rivalry between people who get those big name characters like Lord Soth or Takesis or anything like that? Where you're like,
Hell
oh,
no,
they got it? Oh, man.
no. We get we're the illustrator pool for D&D or Magic and the fantasy market in general is not that big,
Hmm.
and we become friends at Gen Con or art shows that we attend, and we are genuinely happy for each other when we get our friends get these amazing uh, opportunities.
That's great.
Like I saw like uh, some there was a magic set of D&D artwork for set in the Forgotten Realms, and there were these amazing images of Lolth and Tiamat that were amazing.
Yeah.
And my friend Tyler Walpole just did a secret lair with the kids from the D&D cartoon, and that was something that I thought it was incredible because the D&D cartoon had such a huge cultural footprint in
Yeah.
Brazil
Yeah.
because it aired pretty much nonstop in Brazil for like 15, 20 years.
Oh my gosh.
In 2005, they were still airing it on you know not cable, but like
Hmm.
broad TV.
Wow.
And people, Vanger is has a meaning in Brazil, and Bobby, Presto, Eric, and all that. And it was great seeing a friend of mine get the chance to work with those characters.
That's fantastic. Yeah, I want to go back here to the chat room. D20 Play is asking if you actually played any of the original DL 1 to 14 adventures, the old school Dragonlance adventures.
As Forever DM, I actually tried to DM them.
Oh, really?
I have the first collection of the first four adventures that they put out in, I think it was 1990 maybe.
Yeah, for second edition.
Yeah, yeah, it was. I think it was. The rules didn't seem different,
Mm-hmm.
but they put together after the adventures sold uh, individually. The modules sold individually. TSR put together large, thicker collections
Yeah.
of four and four adventures.
Mm-hmm.
So it was the whole 12. And I have the volume one, which was the first four adventures. It ended with the it ended with the fight against Onyx at Zak Tisseroth.
Okay.
I think that's where it ended. And there was a lot of stuff in the adventure that was not in the novels, so it was a double surprise for me because I had no idea about the whole thing with Fistandantilus at the school. That school thing.
Yeah, it was like
So deep cuts.
yeah. No, I think that's great though. I mean, what I often sort of push back a little bit on when anyone says that Dragonlance modules were super railroady, and they are famed of being railroady, there's a lot of stuff in there that's completely different from the novels intentionally because they didn't want to spoil the modules when they were writing the novels concurrently. And so, you know, if you've never actually played them or you've never looked at the original novels, you don't realize how many options there actually are. There's even multiple endings to end the entire saga. You know, it's not all the one from the book. And so I always loved that aspect of it, that they excluded stuff from
Yeah,
the novels that were in the modules, and they just sort of allowed you to do a little bit of sandbox, even though you were still on this singular track.
I think there's people sometimes feel the pressure of playing with the companions of the lands,
Right.
which is not required.
Mm-hmm.
And once they get the characters from the novels, they may feel pressure to follow the actions of the character.
Mm-hmm.
And and but if you include different characters or something like that, uh, part of that pressure just goes away.
Yep.
It's just that sometimes people, that's railroady because I remember vividly, there's a segment in the adventures that says that if the party goes in this or that direction, they'll just keep running into uh, soldiers of the dragon army,
Mm-hmm.
and the soldiers will not stop coming because it's a whole army of soldiers. So if they keep going that direction, they will die. Which is, some may call it railroady, but you know that's the actual situation of the world.
Yeah.
There's an army coming from that direction. Do you really want to go that way?
Seriously. There's a lot of
That's
it's
fun. But
yeah, it's all like contextual, right? I mean, you have to be aware of because it is a sort of a living a living world in Dragonlance. You know, there's a reason why you're supposed to be keeping track of time when you're running these modules, because whatever the players are doing, the dragon armies have a schedule that they're meeting, you know, coming down. So if you stand in their way and you're just sort of playing around, screwing around in your little sandbox area, they're going to run you over. Like,
yeah,
that's what I loved about old school D&D so much, is that, you know, Advanced
there,
Dungeons and Dragons was unforgiving.
there's and there's only so much a module can cover.
Yep.
If you want to go somewhere in the continent that the module does not cover, well, you're on your own.
Yeah.
But if you keep using the module, this is the direction that the module covers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Stay on the map, and we're got you covered. If you want to, go to Tarsus in the far south,
Mm-hmm.
instead of going to the plains of the plains folk,
Yeah.
the Quayshu. Well, you certainly can, but the module does not cover that because they have to stop writing at some point.
Yeah. For sure. So there's a question here, and I just want to give it a quick shout out to people joining us live. Murtis, thank you so much for tuning in. Michael, I appreciate you coming in. Mark, how you doing? Did you have a favorite Dragonlance character?
Uh,
I mean, I think you might have already mentioned it, but
no, wrestling is hard to deny, but of the villains, I love Lord Soth,
yeah,
even in his time in Ravenloft.
me
And
too.
of the heroes, I have a soft spot for Tannis. Just okay, I have two favorite heroes.
Yeah,
Tannis because Larry's design for him was so amazing,
that's great.
and Gilthanas,
Oh, really?
Loranas. Yes, because uh, when I started reading the novels, I also bought those little Dungeons and Dragons choose your own adventure books, like
Yes.
the endless quest books. I even had the one where Raceland does the test of high sorcery.
Yep.
One of those books was Return to Brookmere, which had an amazing. They all had amazing covers by Larry Elmore,
Mm-hmm.
but the Return of Brookmere had an elf in disguise on the cover, looking at orcs assembled before a war rat,
Oh,
right?
wow.
So that elf in disguise and Gilthanas in Dragonlance, they formed our vision of D&D elves for me. The chain shirt, the tabard over
Yep.
everything, black pants and boots, a sword, maybe casting a spell. I think
Yep.
that's why I love playing like Gish characters, like fighter, warrior types that also cast spells.
Yeah.
That's probably my favorite role to play. So yeah, the art plays a big influence in what my favorite character is in the
That's
whole
great. Yeah,
saga.
I had that adventure book, Lords of Doom, where Gilthanas and Silvara had to go over to Naraka and find out what happened to the dragon eggs and stuff. And you're right,
That
that imagery of that elf is so evocative. Of just they're just sort of there with Fithsban on the ship, staring off in the distance at the Lords of Doom.
and the one where Gilthanas and Silvara are looking at the dragon, the mountain carved as a
Yeah,
dragon.
yeah,
And it's looking at Silvara, and that whole design is so amazing. I just love that whole aesthetic
mm-hmm.
of lightly armored, but you know he can cast spells, but he looks like a fast warrior type.
Yeah.
That's a very cool image for me.
Yeah, Gilthanas had one of those moments in Dragons of Winter Night, I think it was, that was super creepy. But as a young man, like reading it, I was like, oh, I wish that could happen to me. Where he like walks up on Silvara, like bathing in the little pool of water, and he's just watching her bathe, like a super creep. So as an adult, it has a different meaning. But as a young kid, I was just like, oh, that'd be awesome. I want to see Silvara.
But we have to keep in mind that that was written by Tracy and Margaret.
Yep.
So you have a woman's voice in that scene as well.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe they didn't decide at that point that they would be together at the end.
Right.
But the tragic blossoming of their romance and stuff like that, and the fact that Margaret had such a big hand in guiding the female characters in Dragonlance
Mm-hmm.
also means a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it is important to always remember that this is not just this sort of patriarchy of a story where there's no female input. No, it definitely did. It had it both.
I was kind of disappointed when many years later I read Lord of the Rings, and the women in Lord of the Rings did not do as much.
Mm-hmm.
don't get me wrong, I'm a fan. I love Tolkien's writing. I love Galadriel, Arwen, uh, Eowyn, but coming from Dragonlance, where Lorana was guiding armies
Yeah.
and
Human armies.
and yes, guiding human armies, and she was actually fighting her own father's patriarchy,
Mm-hmm.
and Silvara had a whole different set of problems, and there was also Ohana
Yeah.
dealing with whatever was happening at the Sylvanesti. Well, no, the
It was
Qualinesti,
Sylvanesti
Sylvanesti, and
for
Dargonet.
Ohana, yeah.
Yeah, Sylvanesti homeland. So they were, and of course, Kitiara, right? You can't talk about women in Dragons and not mention Kitiara.
The most
Uh,
empowered woman in all of Dragonlance, I would argue.
yeah, it's even the villains in oops, spoiler alert for a book that's like 35 years old.
Yeah.
But even the villains in Dragonlance are very, they choose their downfall.
Mm.
It's like in Night of the Black Rose, the first Lords of Ravenloft book, uh, the the Dark Powers try to tempt Lord Soth with, trying to paint him as a victim, so he would be like Strahd, rebelling because, oh, I don't deserve this and stuff like that. And Soth just roars back, I am the maker of my own doom. I am the cause of my damnation.
Yeah.
He knows what he did, and he does not take it back for a second. He knows that he earned whatever punishment the gods chose to bestow upon him, and he will just keep doing it.
Yeah.
He will learn his lesson for a long while.
I love me some Lord Soth. What did you ever read the War of Souls trilogy where you find out what happens to him back on Krynn?
I read the parts that pertain to Soth, so I could write the history check for him.
Right.
I read, I speed read, actually. I skimmed the novel that focused on his family and
that was a good one.
what happened in the War of Souls, all the way to his ending. So I could make a sense of. I didn't want to retell Soft's story for that history check, but the aim was to clear up some contradictions in the various depictions of Soth.
Yep.
Always keeping the books that Margaret and Tracy wrote as the top canon. So if anything else contradicted those books, the other books were jettisoned, or they were chalked up to be, gossiped or hearsay or something like that.
Oh, nice.
But trying to create a unified timeline of Soft's lifetime, even if that meant bringing in stuff from Ravenloft novels, like Caradoc, which was his Senescal or something like that.
I always liked Caradoc. Well, I asked that because the Lord Soth that you and I know is slightly different in this new content that's coming out with this new module. I mean, first and foremost, because, at the end of War of Souls, spoiler alert, everyone, if you haven't read it, come back, you should leave. But, he refuses to join Takhisis, and that's his end. So with this new module coming out, he's actually working with or for Takhisis. It's set up that way visually. So, that's sort of, I'm taking a cue from that.
The description for Shadow of the Dragon Queen is that this new module is set during the War of the Land. So it's way back when, Soth was still holding up in Dargard Keep, and I don't know if it was Kitiara that brought him out, or if
Yeah. Yeah, it
at
was.
Kitiara at the Dragon Army.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it's way before the War of Soul.
Right. Right.
So it's a way that all of this is based on the publicity material that was released,
Mm-hmm.
because there was nothing in the art orders for the images I did that alluded to anything from the storyline
Gotcha.
of the adventure or of the board game.
Right.
They chose to, the companions of the Lance are off doing their thing. All of that is happening, but this other part is also happening.
Mm-hmm.
It's like when you're playing like a World War II board game. You know how D-Day in Normandy will go. You know who will lose World War II.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe this board game is in Northern Africa, and you have to, tell that story, even though what will happen there, it's not does not pertain to how D-Day will turn out or whatever.
Right.
It's a separate story, but for those characters in that separate story, the future is uncertain.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe, Takeshi's and the evil dragon armies will be defeated in 6 or 8 months after this adventure.
Mm-hmm.
But you want to be alive to see that happen, so you have to survive this adventure. Your survival is not guaranteed. These humans or these cities you're protecting or whatever, I'm spitballing
Right.
what the adventure may be about. Their survival is not guaranteed.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe in the novels, when Takeshi is defeated, that city is half ruined, or maybe it will be mostly intact, and that part is up to you.
Yeah.
And even though you're not affecting the outcome of the big cosmic battle between Paladin and Takeshi's, you still need to save these people, because for them that's life and death.
Yeah.
So that was a really smart way to, expand Dragonlance, not backwards or forwards, but to the side.
Yeah. Concurrently. Yeah. Okay. I like that. Let's go through some of these images, because you are an incredibly talented illustrator, and just as an artist myself, I'm just so impressed, and I love some of this stuff. So this is Tanis Half Elven, right?
Yes. So this was done for Dragon Magazine. It was an article with Dragonlance magic items. So that image is actually about Wormsbane,
Wow.
the sword.
That's
And I wanted, so it's about the sword, so let's put the sword first. It's focused on the sword.
Yeah.
But we want to see everything, what's happening around the sword. So I came up with that, and in Dragon Magazine in 4th edition, the format was very vertical.
Mm-hmm.
So I tried to cram everything into a very vertical composition.
Right.
So I played with the depth of the draconian dropping down from the cavern ceiling towards Tanis. And it's funny because they sent me the reference. They always send me references for the images I have to work. That's standard procedure. But they sent me the reference, and I had to write them back. You sent me the wrong draconian. Because this one is supposed to be a Baz draconian, and you send me a Kapak draconian. So the Baz draconian is based on the brass dragon.
Yeah.
So these curling ram horns, and they wrote me back. Yeah, you're right. So keep doing what you're doing. Yeah.
That's great.
So, yeah, sometimes it pays off to be a big nerd of
Yeah.
continuity nerd. And the, I actually painted two swords. I painted that one
Mm-hmm.
because that's designed for Wormslayer that Braum painted on the cover of the Kinslayer Wars.
Yeah.
But they also had me paint one where the sword guard was like dragon wings, and there was a little dragon head uh, going up the blade,
What?
and hilt. The hilt was a little dragon tail. And I said, you know what? I'll paint it, but that's not how Wormslayer looks in the books.
Yeah.
And, and yeah, you're right. Okay, so they ran with this one
Oh
because I
wow.
love the simplicity of that design.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Braum is amazing. I
Yeah,
love.
I took a photo of myself for uh, uh, that depiction of tennis,
Mm-hmm.
holding a big uh, dice tube as the sword,
Yeah.
and I grabbed my wife's purse, had it strapped across my chest,
That's awesome.
to get everything right and all that. I was much back then,
Yeah.
but hey, if Larry can base tennis on himself, maybe I can put something of myself in there as well.
That's great. No, I love that. And reference material is always great, visually, especially when you're painting it. Can I ask you about your process? Um,
Okay,
is it all
so
digital or is it physical?
I've been changing some stuff because I work digitally, and that doesn't leave me with an original to sell. So
Mm-hmm.
I've started doing some stuff where I end up printing a preliminary image before I do the final touches on the computer. So I paint everything digitally. I print it out to make sure everything is okay and the colors are fine and all that.
Yeah.
And then I go back digitally and do any final touch ups. But then I have an original master print, as it called, that I can sell afterward. So, but these is just for really recent pieces.
Yeah.
Back when I was doing those Dragonlance items, it was all digital.
Okay.
And yeah, I looked at a lot of Larry's versions of the Staff of Mages to get that one right.
Yeah, it's great. I love that with Dragonlance, and I can only assume they do it with everything else, but with Dragonlance, they always send source materials as reference, of what's already been done, so that there is a consistency in look and feel.
Yeah, I when I'm working on these older D&D stuff,
Mhm.
I usually have here something because I have a lot of books,
Yeah.
especially of Dragonlance, Ravenloft, Dark Sun, Planescape, uh, Red Steel. I have them
Oh
there.
wow.
I so I oh, what does a Staff of Mages looks like? I can just stretch my hand, pick up the art of Dragonlance, and it's there. So, but uh, when it came to working on Warriors of Kryn, Watsy uh, makes some visual bibles for these products.
Mhm.
So they have artists that refresh or create new versions of stuff that was done in the 80s, but they want to update some more or include a greater variety of people in there. You noticed in the cover for Shadow of the Dragon Queen that Lord Soft's helmet has changed a bit.
Oh yeah.
It has a grill on the front now.
Mhm.
I'm not so sure. No, I'm not. I'm kidding. I'm fond of Keith's version, but this one looks great as well.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I got to be honest, as long as the quality of artwork is good, I can buy into it. It's all just interpretation, and it's still the same characters, or still the same setting, and so I can still appreciate it, even if it's not particularly my favorite helmet. I mean, if you look at Lord Soth back in AD&D, before he got his iconic helmet, he had like one of those really old school knights pointed nose helmets, and he was often seen without it. I mean, even on the cover of Dragonlance Adventures, which was sort of the end of the AD&D Dragonlance line, that is a weird looking Lord Soth, but it's still Lord Soth and it's still Dragonlance, so I still love it. We've got a couple people who are jumping in and out of here. Let me quickly give a shout out to John. Thanks for joining live. The Horrific Podcast. Good friend. Thanks for joining live, man. It's good to see you. There's a question here. Other than your work, do you have a favorite Dragonlance art piece painting?
Oh, my favorite Dragonlance pieces are not my work. Lord Soth's Charge.
Yeah.
The one, Lords of Doom, the one you mentioned with the ship.
Oh, that's so good. Yeah.
The one with Lorana standing over Sturm's body.
Yeah, that is devastating.
Streams of Silver. No, what was the one with Gilthanas and Silvar looking at the dragon? Dragons of Mystery?
No, that was DL5. I can't remember the name of it, to be honest. I can't remember.
That was in one of the Dragonlance calendars.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was a good one too.
I looked at the cover for Taladas the Minotaurs. Brom doing tour and the misty background. Mm-hmm. That's cool too. And I love the companions fighting Onyx at Zaxxarat.
Oh yeah, that's a good one too.
That's a lot of stuff going on in that painting. Oh my god!
Yeah,
and it's a perfect example of making stuff up as you go, because Clyde just decided, you know what, Caramon's gonna be left-handed because I need him to be left-handed for this painting.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna find a different for Caramon. He's gonna be left-handed, and Caramon became left-handed.
Yeah.
Just because Clyde didn't want to find a different pose for him, and that I think that stuff is amazing. That's an example of art guiding the design.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
artists. Let's make it.
I'm always so impressed with how all the early on artists worked together. And even though there was a little bit of pushback, like whether or not Gold Moon had pants or not, that was one of them, whether she had leggings or not. Flint's hat, with the horse tail that he insists is griffin mane, that was a little contested between different artists and stuff. But it is usually just really, you refer to the last person who did it and what they did, and you just sort of carry that on. And that creates this wonderful consistency.
TSR had a great art department.
Yeah.
In-house department, to be clear.
Mm-hmm.
So you had Larry, Jeff, Clyde, Fred. Fred came in later. Keith. Mm-hmm. They all worked together. They had a studio there with Dave Sutherland was the art director. And it was a team. They weren't individual artists. They were together as a team, and that's a great setup
mm-hmm.
to create a saga as heavily influenced by artwork as Dragonlance was.
Yeah, I mean, I think that is what set it apart from everything else that was out there at the time, and really propelled it. I mean, because if you just look at the book covers, and they always say don't judge a book by its cover, you can't help doing it. The Dragonlance book covers are amazing. And so you can't help but, as you're reading it, And they have these wonderful illustrations at chapter heads as well, where you're pulled in because of the artwork. You can't escape it. And it's just such a wonderful way of adding color and character to this wonderful story and the world at large. Getting back to your professional side of things, what do you find most satisfying about being an illustrator?
Oh God,
Nothing. It's hard.
I hate this. I love the problem solving part of it.
Mm-hmm.
Figuring stuff out. I love uh, coming up with a different composition, or uh, trying to tell a story in the image.
Mm-hmm.
Even though the image is not about the story, you can certainly throw in a lot of little clues, little Easter eggs here and there to hint at uh, a larger story. Like the Staff of Mages image that I did, the Staff of Mages is lying on a red cloak, which is Raisling's red cloak, obviously,
Yeah.
with his backpack and a spell book to the side to show that it's a wizard, and trying to do that thing that Larry did with the cover of Dragons of Spring Dawning. Half of the cloak is in shadow, so it looks
Dark.
blacker.
Yes.
It looks black, hinting that Raistlin will don, spoiler alert, the black robes, like he did in Spring Dawning, where Raistlin is to the side and there's a shadow falling over his red robes,
Yep.
because by the end of the book he's in the red robes. So you have to. It's fun to put in those little stuff that people who know the books will recognize.
Mm-hmm.
People who know the books will say, "Oh, that's a lived-in scene. There's a staff lying on a cloak, and there's a backpack, and there's a book. So probably the wizard stopped for the night to memorize his spells, prepare his spells. And so even if you're not familiar with Dragonlance, there's still a story there. But if you know Dragonlance, you can figure out what's the story happening, what the story is telling.
Yeah, just looking at this beautiful image you created, I'm imagining a naked Raceland doing yoga off camera. He's, he likes to walk around the Tower High Sorcery naked just to make Dalamar uncomfortable. He doesn't want to wrinkle his robe, and so he lays it out flat.
Well, he looks like a statue, so it could be worse.
It's
It could
true.
be, it's Dendantilus.
Just wrinkles everywhere.
Ellison doing hot yoga at the top of Atlantis.
Everyone's begging him not to do Downward Dog again. Please, no more. I can't handle Elistan backsack. All right. Well, I really appreciate you coming on here. I want to go through some of these other images because you have some just beautiful, even non-Dragonlance artwork that you've done, which is just stunning. Of course, this is a magical Kender Spoon of Turning.
Yes.
So good. Do you think that the Kender Spoon of Turning is actually effective, or do you think it's just a Kender tale?
Who knows?
Yeah.
At least the Kenders are brave enough to not run away if it's not working. So either the spoon has been through a lot of Kender hands,
Yeah.
or it works a little bit too.
I'll take it. However, I mean, I'm good with it working. I'm good with it not working. I just love how it's, depending. Like it's one of those sort of tongue-in-cheek things that it's never fully explained, and it even actually shows up as a magical artifact in some later books. And so I always find it really funny, different people's takes on it and stuff. So this is a great shot. So this is a Calaman soldier, is that correct?
I can't
Oh, okay.
do a lot, but she has Calaman's crest on her armor and on the pommel of her sword.
That's great.
So you can say that you can tell that she's in the defense of Calaman.
Mm-hmm.
And I was last week. I just had like the best surprise because Larry Elmore just commented on that image on Facebook saying that it was great, and I was, oh my god, Larry, thank you.
Oh, that's
That
great.
means I told them because everything here was inspired by Larry, by his work.
Yeah.
So yeah,
That's
the
awesome.
the face of the warrior was inspired a bit by actress Eva Mendes
Oh, really?
because she was described to me in the art order as being visually closer to being a Latino woman.
Mm-hmm.
And but I gave him two options of hair in a sketch, not fully painted, because being Dragonlance, she's a warrior woman, so you have to think of Kitiara and Lorana, which are the two main female warriors in the saga, and they have very different approaches to their hair.
Mm-hmm.
So Lorana has huge braids, and her helmet is just like a skull cap, and Kitiara has short hair to wear a full helmet.
Mm-hmm.
So I gave them both options. One option where she has long hair tied into a braid down her back, and one where she has an undershave, inspired by a friend of mine on Twitter, Super Dylan. Shout out.
Yeah.
They went with that hair, which I think was the right choice because it gave her more personality.
Yeah.
She looks more no nonsense. I'll shave my head and just put on a helmet, and she just leave the hair on top to cushion the helmet a bit.
Yeah,
But
I'm sorry. I was just going to say that I like how, like from Fight Club, for example, they say, fighting became a reason to trim your nails and cut your hair and stuff. I mean, that's how it was back in the day. You had to keep your hair short cropped so that it didn't get in your face when you were wearing a helmet or when you were fighting. It looks great. She looks fierce.
and I love that the armor that was designed, the armor was designed by Sean Wood at Wizards of the Coast. He did the concept sketches for it, for all levels of armor. And I like that it's a very down to earth, realistic, functional suit of armor.
Yeah.
It's full plate with chain underneath, and you can see the straps that hold it together. It's not like it doesn't have. She has the pauldrons, but it's not those huge Warcrafty pauldrons that sometimes fantasy art depicts. It's very realistic.
Yeah.
And it's and of course no boob armor.
Yeah.
Because that has its place. But when we're talking about realistic armor, you have to, she's shapely. You can tell that this is a woman, but she doesn't have feminine armor.
Yeah.
She wears a suit of armor suitable for someone of her frame, and that's it.
Yeah.
Not dying is gender neutral.
Yeah, I mean, you have to think about if you're a city or some sort of military force, you're not going to make custom sets for everyone. You're going to have standard, this is a breastplate that the blacksmith put together. He's going to replicate it 100 times, and you're going to be issued that as a soldier of this city. I mean, that's how it is. You wouldn't have that custom.
That's one way, but you have to remember that these suits, especially full plate, I'm not talking chainmail, because chainmail, the smith would just hammer out thousands of rings every day, and someone would just, put them together into a suit, and it has to fit a mannequin that they have at the shop. But when it comes to full plate, it has to be fitted to the wearer, especially around the hip and the shoulders, stuff like that. So there's a level of personalization.
Okay.
If you think about it, the armor is doing the whole suit by himself, so it's artisanal.
Right.
It's not mass produced in a factory.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe one armor is just doing breastplates, and another armor is just doing left epaudrons, and another armor is an apprentice is doing shin guards or something like that, or bracers.
Yeah.
And in the end, they assemble the armor. But when each person that warrants a full plate, which you would suppose is like a knight or a captain or someone of a certain rank, goes in, they go in to have the armor fitted. So you have to measure, you have to tighten the straps and mark and make the holes in the leather straps so it fits perfectly and with the movement. So there's a level of personalization. But it's not going to be like, oh, I'm going to take your measurements and I'm going to fit this armor to your physique like a second skin, like it's a spandex. You have to like she's wearing chainmail underneath the breastplate, so you have to fit in not just the body but a lot of extra padding and extra protection under there. This stuff we think a lot when coming up with these illustrations.
I love because that.
I one thing that I particularly love, I like when my artwork comes out looking solid. I've that someone said to me, "Oh, I thought this was a 3D rendering. I thought this was a sculpture, a photo of a sculpture." But then I looked in, and it's a painting. Yes, that's what I like to do. I like it when it looks solid, when it has weight to it. I don't like that when I'm only talking about my art. I love other artists that have a completely different style than mine. But when I'm doing my art, I like when my art looks like it has gravity, like it has weight.
Oh yeah.
Like that art is solid, and you can sense how much it weighs, or you can see the material it's made of. That's something that I strive to include in my artwork.
Yeah, I love that. Well, let's look at some more of your stuff. Really quick to answer a question that was put out here in the chat by a Horrific Podcast. Aren't Wizards of the Coast in a spot of bother at the moment and thinking about selling D&D? No, they actually, Hasbro bought Wizards of the Coast, and that is like a massive corporation, and they're going to actually unify everything and make sure that it's the widest appeal possible. Like right now, D&D is in the best place it's ever been. The most commercial place that it's ever been, and I don't see Hasbro giving that up anytime soon.
Wizards of the Coast is, according to reports I read, it's the most lucrative branch of Hasbro.
Yeah, they're killing
Wizards of the Coast. Between Magic and Dungeons and Dragons, Wizards of the Coast is bringing Hasbro more money than toys, than everything else that Hasbro does.
Yeah.
It's the money maker for the whole thing. At some point, you're going to say that Magic is bankrolling the next Transformers movie or whatever.
For real though, like straight up. So this image is beautiful. I just you have such a way of, you were talking about, making it look solid and real. Your work with textures and light is just beautiful. I absolutely love it. And I love little creatures too. So.
A friend of mine, two friends of mine, they're a couple, photographer Stephen Townsend, who was the co-author with me and Rodney Thompson of Heroes of the Feywild. for 4th edition D&D. He's a photographer, and his wife, Elizabeth McDougall, she's an actress. And a while back, they did a photo series of the heroines of Shakespeare. And she was dressed as a gender-bent Prospero from The Tempest. And I love the photo. I love the outfit that she was wearing. Oh, I'm going to save this for future reference. And then when I think it was August or September 2019, I had a break in my schedule where I didn't have any freelance work. So I did, I'm going to do something for my portfolios. So I started doing that painting, using her as the photos I had of her as a model. And I came up with the whole dragon thing and lighting up the tip of her staff like it was a candle, and everything is burning, and it's a broken stair that she's on top of, and there's papers with notes and diagrams falling around her and burning up. And the name of the painting is Words of Fire. And that painting was included in the Infected by Art yearbook for 2019.
That's great.
It was the only piece so far that has made it into an art yearbook.
Oh, that's great, though. It's a beautiful piece. Yeah.
Thank you. I actually got to sign it for Elizabeth at Gen Con 2022 because we hadn't seen each other since the pandemic began.
Oh, wow.
So, hi, Elizabeth. Love you.
That's fantastic.
So, that one is the prayers of ravens. It's done in a style similar to stained glass, because I did stained glass artwork for Descent into Avernus, which was the saga of Zariel, which told the backstory of the adventure as a series of stained glass windows. And those pieces got a really good reception, and they were included in the video game for Baldur's Gate: Descent into Avernus.
Oh, very cool.
And yeah, wow, that was another surreal thing.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna do a new stained glass piece for my portfolio. So I decided to do one of the Raven Queen, which is a deity that was invented for 4th edition D&D, which I liked a lot. And so I did one with her, Narrow, which is the Greyhawk god of death that she supplanted in 4th edition. And that's another piece that has been well received.
Yeah, I mean, it has this dusting of Art Nouveau on it, which is, the whole stained glass aspect of it. It's beautiful. I mean, the colors are great. I love that.
I had to look at a lot of, when I was doing the pieces for Descent into Avernus, I had to look at a lot of stained glass, actual stained glass artwork to see the limitations of the medium, because I wanted to mimic that.
That's awesome.
If you have you have a character with beige, rosy skin and black hair, those bits have to be in separate panes of glass, because one pane of glass is painted in shades of pink and the other in shades of black. So you want it to look like it was actually made following the technique of stained glass.
Yeah. Well, it definitely came through. I mean, I love the methodology that you're always researching and you're always comparing it to real world and trying to get as realistic as possible. I think that's a trait that I don't know that every artist I've ever met does, but you can see it in the art when you do, and it really comes through beautifully. I mean, this is another piece that is just stunning here.
Thank you. That's masks of the Fey Court. The character I was as a pure entertainment exercise. I picked up the Dungeons and Dragons Essentials kit
Mm-hmm.
and assembled characters using just the options in the Essentials kit. And one of the characters I made was a High Elf, Rogue, Arcane Trickster. And then I decided, you know what, I'm gonna paint this character, and started designing the character. And there was this model that I've used it several times, Alice on Chains. Shout out! That actually first time in person at Gen Con 2022 because
wow.
pandemic. But I've used her several times in my paintings, and I had a picture of her in my computer that I used as reference for the face, but everything else I I made up from other references, or I had to take my own pictures to get the hand right or something like that. For instance, the mask she's taken off is actually Elizabeth,
Oh,
my friend from the Fire.
wow.
So she was actually in two of my paintings.
Yeah.
And he ended up making up the whole backstory for this character. So that's inspired by a song by Thin Lizzy.
Oh,
That's
really?
Rajin Dub in Irish means black rose. So
Wow.
I decided this is a gender queer character that uses they them pronouns.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes she her, sometimes he him. When they are feeling chivalry in leathers and all that, may go by he. When they're feeling courtly, they might use like illusion magic to make up a full length court dress and use she her pronouns. And they're a former lover of the Queen of Fairy,
Oh, wow.
and they work as an agent of Fairy in the mortal realm, guarding, being watching over threats to the Fairy realm, because the enemies of the Fairy sometimes use the mortal world as a staging ground for invasions or coups or strikes or stuff like that.
Oh,
So
wow.
they work in the mortal realm to keep the interests of Fairy safe. And I did that as that image, thinking of a book cover, because I needed more book covers for my portfolio.
Right.
So that's why the ratio aspect is novel cover.
Mm-hmm. It's beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful. I love this. This is another one that has this really nice nouveau touch to it. Um,
That's baptized in dragon blood. That's a character that before I settled on this art style. It's this realistic, imaginative realism, as we call it,
mm-hmm.
art style. I had a very comic booky art style, line dependent, thick lines, the whole thing that you would associate with comic book.
Yep.
And I, at some point, I did like a three. It was supposed to be 4 or 5 page comics, but I only did 3.
Mm-hmm.
That's because life kept getting in the way. I did a 3 page comic with that character called Eileen the Dragon Slayer, where she was like almost pole dancing around a dragon's horn with in her hand.
Yeah.
So she was jumping from a ledge onto a dragon's horn, grabbing it, and twirling around the dragon horn and hitting the dragon in the eye with an axe.
Jeez.
So I call that my pole dancing dragon slayer. I had that character done in a comic book style. It's you can see it on my Facebook page.
Oh, that's great.
I wanted to paint her again, it was the pandemic had just started. I wasn't doing anything,
Mm-hmm.
and cat had just died, and I
Oh.
wanted to get my mind off everything that was happening.
Mm-hmm.
So uh, there's this model and fitness uh, influencer, wellness influencer called Autumn Ivy. Shout out uh, that she posted a picture. I bought photo packs from her a couple of times, and I've used those photos in the past. But for this one, she had just posted a photo of her, at the gym, taking a photo of herself in the mirror, doing flexing her arm, and her other hand is holding the phone. And I said, "Oh, that photo looks interesting. I could do some stuff with that photo." And so I saved it,
Mm-hmm.
and I painted that image of Eileen standing amid the coils of a slain dragon.
That's great.
Uh, and I sent it to Autumn, and she loved it, and we've kept in touch
Oh, that's
ever
wonderful.
since. And that's another one that I did with the intention of being in my book cover portfolio.
Yeah.
It's always about contrasts and having an image that it catches the eye.
Mm-hmm.
So the bright background with her in the shadow in the front, and her very vertical position being in contrast with the sweeping curves of the dragon carving or the dragon wing behind her. So I think that piece came out well,
Yeah.
and I'm really proud of the leather in her harness, because it looks, like I said, it looks solid. It looks real. It looks like it has weight. It's
Yeah.
not just like, oh, it it's her almost like her body's painted brown.
Yeah.
There's no folds, no wrinkles. No, there's folds, wrinkles, iron bits, steel bits, and stuff like that.
Yeah. No, it looks
Was
great.
using actual paint, actual photos of strong women. I'm saying women because that's what we're talking about here with this painting.
Yeah.
You start having to take those muscles, that shape into account when creating the armor, when creating the position of the character, the pose that she's doing. Uh, you start treating the character not as a drawing, but as a person that you're depicting.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, she is strong. Her shoulders are broad, and how can I, protect her while taking into account that she needs to move in this armor, even though Eileen's armor has one plate sleeve, which is something that predates this painting from the pole dancing one.
Yeah.
She's leather armor, and one armor is in full plate.
Oh,
So
wow.
that's my concession to this being a fantasy
Yeah.
character. That does not have to make sense.
Nope. But it's great when you can think about, how it would make sense for that individual character or their fighting style or, whatever. I think it's fantastic.
It's covered in dragon blood,
Yeah.
but I didn't want to cover the painting.
So this is another one that's really great. This is very like very graphic novel feeling of a tone to me. Uh, I don't know what it's just it's emotional. Like when I look at this one.
That's the character V from the Arcane cartoon that
Okay.
Netflix aired last year. She's a
Oh.
character from League of Legends, and which I've never played.
Mm.
But uh, last year, Netflix came out with Arcane, which is a CGI cartoon that they aired I think it was in September or October, something like that.
I
And
missed
it's
it.
the most beautiful. It's the most beautiful thing I've ever seen.
Oh wow!
It's just you can pause that animation at any point, and it's a full-on painting. It's if they did a Dragonlance, an adaptation of the Dragonlance Chronicle in
Please.
that technology, it would look like Larry's paintings moving. It's so amazing.
Wow. I'm
So
gonna have to check this out.
I used another model for this one. It was Platinum Kerberos. She's on Instagram. She's a power lifter and a cosplayer.
Oh, cool.
And I used a photo of her for the face
Mm-hmm.
of, but everything else I kind of created, but still keeping her build in mind because Vi is very much a fist fighter,
Oh,
and
yeah.
in the team in League of Legends, she has the Atlas gauntlets, which are two oversized gauntlets that gave her like super strength. And I wanted to show her, like baptized in dragon blood, I wanted to show the moment after the fight. So she's leaning against a wall, she's resting one hand on her shoulder, the other hand is inside an Atlas gauntlet, and you can see the lights of the gauntlet behind her.
Yeah.
Uh, uh, and her hair is washed down with sweat, but she's still powerful, she's still strong and all that. And you can see that she's just been through a fight, and still she's looking at you like, yeah, want to start something?
This is great. I love the light in this one as well. And then
I
I
love
think this
playing with
is
light.
what's that?
I love playing with light.
Oh yeah, it comes through, and you're really really good at it too. So this is this that series that you were talking about?
Yes, that's the saga of Zariel from Baldur's Gate: Descent into Avernus.
Wow.
So it shows the backstory of the adventure,
Mm-hmm.
of how the angel Zariel became the Archduke of Hell
Oh, cool.
and ruler of the first layer of Hell.
Mm-hmm.
So it's actually the first fifth edition depiction of Asmodeus in
Oh,
the
wow.
third wind. It's Asmodeus, the Lord of Hell, the Lord of the Ninth,
Yeah.
taking offering his hand to Zariel and offering her position in his hierarchy, so she could fight demons forever.
Cool. I love that. Yeah, I'm a big fan of sort of fallen angels and like Dante's Inferno version of hell with the like levels. I love that stuff.
Yeah, like I said, I've loved the Great Wheel of the Planes, the Outer Planes of D&D
Mm.
since I started playing, and I loved looking over the monster manual and looking at the rulers of the nine, the Dukes of Hell.
Yeah.
I actually managed. I painted Geryon, the former Duke of I think it's the sixth layer of the Nine Hells. I actually painted him for Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes.
Really?
Uh, and that image was reused now in Monsters of the Multiverse. So
Oh,
Geryon
cool.
is the one with a human head, bat wings, bare arms. He has a right to bare arms. And his lower body is a snake
Yeah.
that ends in a scorpion stinger.
Very, very
And
cool.
I managed to, and he has a big horn that he blows to summon like minotaurs to fight for him.
Awesome.
So it was one of my favorite Dukes of Hell in first edition because
Mm-hmm.
it just looked like a monster, like a crazy monster, and it was a lot of fun to paint him realistically and for fifth edition.
Mm-hmm.
I actually used John Cena as,
Oh,
as inspiration for his torso
yeah.
and some facial features
Oh,
because
that's great. JB, thanks for joining live. We're actually winding down our conversation here. Claudio, thank you so much for joining me. I've had such a good time having a conversation with you and getting to know your art and you a little bit as well. Can you tell the good folks watching where they can find you online? Because you also have a Patreon, is that correct?
Yes. First of all, thank you, Adam, for inviting me.
Of course.
It's a pleasure to talk about Dungeons and Dragons, talk about Dragonlance. It's it's a saga that I've liked since I don't know 1988 was the first time I read.
We're that old.
The late 1900s. Say this day. And you can find me on Twitter. It's at Claudio Pozas. My website is claudiopozas.com, and I have a Patreon where I show sketches, I show process pieces, I show work in progress, I show variants that you don't get to see, like for instance, for the Dragonlance pieces, I'm gonna put the process for them either next week or the one after, and you'll get to see the two versions of the hair for the human
Cool.
warrior. It's patreon.com/Claudio Pozas. You can find on my Twitter. You can find the link in my bio.
Okay.
And on I can't remember my handle on Instagram, but Instagram has been really bad these days. So just follow me on Twitter, and you links on my bio on my website.
Yeah, on Instagram, the URL ending is claudio.pozas. So you can just find him there as well. It'll be easy.
On Instagram.
Yeah, thanks, Horrific Podcast. Make sure you guys hit the like button because that always helps a lot as well. All right. Well, once again, I really appreciate you, being so generous with your time and talking about this wonderful, nerdy, cool stuff that we all love so much. I don't even know if it's nerdy anymore. It was when I was a kid, but not anymore. Now it's just like normal.
It is nerdy. Nerdy is cool now.
Yeah.
So
it's nerdy chic at this point.
We're vintage.
Yeah. In either case, thank you guys for who joined in live in the chat. John, I'm not sure if I called you out, but thanks for stopping in live as well. For all of you tuning in live and asking your questions and engaging with each other throughout the course of this video, that's what makes this live format fun for me, is being able to interact with the audience watching. And it adds to the conversation that I'm having here with Claudio as well because of your questions and your comments. So thank you guys so much for tuning in live. And oh, look at that. Nice. Is that Tiamat from the Dungeons and Dragons cartoon?
That's Tiamat from the 4th edition.
Oh, cool.
No, I think this is from 3rd edition. Even okay. That is the aspect of Tiamat.
Oh, that's great.
Which serves as Takeshis.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
No, we're going to keep going forever. We keep doing this. Have a fantastic day, everyone. And until next time, Slanjivar.